Hello from the other side of pregnancy and motherhood. I am officially a mother now as of Friday, so I'm 4 days into motherhood. Let's talk about it. Let me begin by saying that I always used to believe that new parents were lying when they said that having a baby was exhausting but the best thing that you'll ever do. Kind of thought parenthood was like a cult, that once you're in, you can't leave, so you're constantly trying to recruit new members. But I can safely report back that we are 4 days in, we are sleep deprived, but it is the most magical, wonderful thing that I have ever done. And I'm mindful that I'm also high on endorphins. We're in that kind of easy newborn phase where he's sleeping a lot. It hasn't been easy, but I'm mindful that I know it's going to get more difficult. I feel like it's unlocked a new experience of life. Like watching my husband become a father has been just chef's kiss, the best thing ever. So let's talk about my C-section first of all. I was a little bit terrified of my C-section. For context, because I know this question gets asked all the time, the reason why I had to have a scheduled C-section is because I had a myomectomy about a year and a half ago now. That meant that if I had a natural birth, there was a risk of my uterus splitting, basically. So I was heavily advised, have a scheduled C-section. And overall, it was actually a really beautiful experience. I think some people feel disappointed when they're told that they are recommended to have a scheduled C-section. And for me personally, I think my husband and I loved knowing the exact day that we were going to have our baby. It really allowed us to plan. It allowed us to have our last date night and really kind of cherish the moment. So I personally really liked knowing the date that we were going to have our son. On the morning of my scheduled C-section, I got to the hospital at around 5:30 a.m. Eventually, they took me up to the kind of place where they do the surgeries. I don't know what it's called. I was taken to a room where I was told to undress, put on like a little hospital robe, and they started asking me questions about a lot of questions, I guess, to prep for the surgery. I can't even remember what they were asking me. It was honestly such a blur, but I was a little bit nervous. When they put the IV in my arm, I thought I was going to faint, and I was like, what did you give me? Because I was feeling woozy. And the nurse was like, I think you're just having a reaction to seeing the IV go into your arm. I've had 2 blood transfusions, 1 iron transfusion. I am an old hat at IVs, so I think it was just like the realization that this was actually happening. Then the doctor came in and we had a little chat. I made sure he was feeling good that day. I was like, doctor, are you feeling yourself? Today's gonna be a good day. And he was like, yep, it's gonna be fine. You better not mess up. I really like my doctor. We have a good banter, I think. Actually, every single person that we met was so nice. Following the doctor, coming in and, seeing how I was feeling, answering any questions. Anesthesiologist then came in, answered some questions. And then they took me to the room. They took my husband away. They took me into the operating room, got me to sit on the table that I would lie down on and kind of hunch my back like a cat like this. And my doctor stood in front of me and he just kind of kept reminding me, okay, relax your head, relax your shoulders. Anesthesiologist stood behind me and first of all gave me like a numbing injection. It felt a bit like a bee sting. It honestly didn't really hurt much at all. And then she put in I think it's just called a spinal, which is what makes you numb from here down. Sorry, from here down. I could still move my arms. She gave me the spinal and I don't remember this part hurting that much. I think the biggest thing for me was just the anxiety of the whole moment of being in a room with loads. There was like 20 people in the room, 20 doctors in the room, and me lying naked on a table or on a table naked being injected. As soon as they injected me, they then asked me to lie down. So I lay down, got like a little, I want to say it was a needle, and they would kind of poke me in the arm and then poke me in the leg and say, okay, do you feel the difference? And while I could feel more of like a pain in my arm, I didn't really feel pain in my leg when they jabbed me. It was more just like feeling the pressure of it, which is exactly apparently what they're going for. I don't know why, but I always thought that with a C-section, you would maintain a level of presence in the moment. Like, I don't know, I didn't think that I would feel woozy. I didn't think, maybe naively, because I've never really talked to someone who's had a C-section about it in depth. I thought that I would be able to keep my wits about me and still be fully present. That definitely was not my experience, at least. I felt very sleepy. I felt very out of it. Not in a bad way, but not in a good way. Like, it's probably for the best given that they were cutting me open while I was conscious. But I definitely didn't feel like I could like be myself and just be fully there. It was more of I don't know, definitely a weird feeling not being able to move your legs. Definitely a weird feeling, the pressure of what's happening beneath the curtain that they put up. So once I lay down, they then put the curtain up. So I couldn't see what was happening. Like here downwards, they brought my husband in, they got started. As I was saying, I could feel pressure and I could feel things happening beneath the curtain, but I couldn't tell you what was, like, it didn't hurt. I couldn't tell you what was going on. And I just kept looking at my husband and just trying to kind of like calm myself down. I felt a little bit like I was being abducted by aliens, because if you can imagine that you're lying in this operating room and there's like 3 huge lights above you that are just like blaring on you, felt very surreal and very strange. And then the doctor said, here's your son. And I remember looking up and seeing my baby like lifted above the curtain and thinking, oh my God, he looks just like my husband. And then there was a squirt of blood that squirted at my face. And then they took the baby away and they started closing me up. Took the baby to the side to kind of do some checks on him. And my husband was with me and I told him, please go with the baby, go with the baby. So he went with the baby. And then after, I don't know how long, maybe a few minutes, my OB, my main doctor, said, excuse me, who's the baby nurse? Can you please have her hold her baby? I think she'd appreciate to hold her baby. They then brought the baby to me and put him on my chest. And following that, they closed me up. It was all done. They wheeled me out of the room to a recovery room. I could not move my legs. It was such a strange sensation. I couldn't move it for a few hours afterwards. But then we had our baby, and so it was me, my husband, and our baby in the recovery room. And it was just, honestly, I don't remember much from that part of it because I was so out of it from what had just happened. I was extremely sleepy. I couldn't keep my eyes open. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stay awake? It was only afterwards I was like, oh, well, of course they probably gave you something to kind of like relax you, not just numb your body, but like relax you emotionally and consciously or whatever. Overall, the C-section experience, the scariest part was the thing itself. Weirdly, I felt okay in the run up to it and afterwards, but in the operating room, of course, that was like the most terrifying. It was only maybe 45 minutes to an hour and it was done. After we were in the recovery room for maybe 2 hours, I can't even remember if anyone came and checked on me. I'm sure the doctor might have come and checked on me. I honestly can't remember. I was so out of it. Then they wheeled me to a room in the hospital where my husband and I would be staying for the next 2 days. And honestly, I was incredibly impressed with the way the hospital had this set up. It was like our own private space. All of the help that we might possibly need was made available to us in that room. So I'm gonna wrap this up here. I'll make a separate video about that experience of our 2 days in the hospital and what that was like. While it was amazing and the quality of care there was exceptional, there were definite moments where I think that there are some things that you shouldn't say to a new mom. For example, right now your baby belongs to the state and until we release him, you can't take him home. So that was fun. I'll share that story another time. But overall, the C-section itself went really well. I recovered really well. One thing I will say as well is that I had in my myomectomy a year and a half ago, my recovery was terrible. I can make a whole separate video about that and the difference between the two. My C-section recovery has been phenomenal. And I think it's probably because of my myomectomy, but I can talk about that another time. Let me know if you're about to have a C-section, don't be scared. It's definitely scary in the moment, but it's worth it 100%. You're going to get a little baby out of it that you're going to love so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions about my experience. Just let me know.